Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 648 with a review of Soul. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a streaming platform near you. This week, we're going to have two films for you. We have Soul, which is came to Disney Plus this past weekend. And then also we'll have a review of Wonder Woman 1984 for you, which, of course, premiered on HBO Max. So this should be fun. But yeah, this is a Pixar film that we're talking about here, Soul. And generally, all these Pixar films start in theaters with a Pixar short that airs before them. This year, that short also aired on Disney Plus. That is the film Burrow, the short film Burrow. So let's go ahead and just talk about our thoughts on Burrow. What did you think of it, Stephen?
I mean, my honest answer is I barely thought of it. It felt, compared to most Pixar shorts as of late, it kind of felt like it wasn't. It was almost too simple, right? Like it basically is just this cute. First of all, it seems 2D animated rather than 3D, which is interesting. I feel like it's been a while, if ever, since I've seen Pixar do a legit 2D. Like Paperman looked 2D, but even that was kind of like cell shading or something on top of a 3D that had been done. So the animation style looked very simple, but then the message was just kind of pure cute. Like I think it was neighbors are a thing. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't think much. I would say it passed right through me more than your typical Pixar short did. Like completely cute, but not adorable. Not enough for me to get involved in the way that, like, let's say a little puppy eating a feast would make me feel like invested. This just felt like a cute little display of potentially hand-drawn animation, but that was about it. It didn't leave me thinking very much at all.
And to be fair, before we get emails, Paperman and Feast are both Disney animation studios and not actually Pixar shorts.
You're right. You're right.
But yeah, I mean, these are definitely trying to play in that area. And it's also part of Pixar's Sparks Shorts system, which is, I'm not super familiar with that logo. Maybe they've all had that, but it feels like it is a little bit of a different offshoot. But yeah, I thought it was a cute film. I was also, I mean, first of all, I was a little thrown off by the fact that this wasn't just part of, like, I click on Soul and then I see a short. This was like a separate thing that you had to find. For me, it was like the next up thing once Soul finished. Like during the credits, it was like, why not also watch Burrow? So it was a thing that, like, they had shown me afterwards. But yeah, I think if it hadn't have been, like, Julius mentioned to me that it was a thing to watch, I was like, oh shit, like because I hadn't watched Soul yet at the time that he mentioned it. So it was a thing that, like, I probably would have missed it completely, other than seeing it at the end. So I'm glad I knew about it to watch it. But yeah, I thought it was cute. It was, I kind of put it on not expecting too much, but it was like, as you said, it was very, very simple, but I think it was still kind of fun. And, it had like just a very simple pleasure to it, which, thematically, I think works with maybe what the film Soul is doing.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get it. I think they pair well together. It was just a little... I think it doesn't help that the last animated film I watched was Wolfwalkers, so I think my bar for the animation itself blowing me away was just too high for a little short like this. But yeah, I think that Pixar Sparks thing, if I remember right, because the last few years, then at movie theaters, you've been able to watch, like, the animated shorts that were nominated for Academy Awards. And I think often one of those Sparks program ones will get at least one entry there. So I think that is a way for them to kind of show up and coming artists or whatever. They probably give some kind of, Pixar or Disney Pixar endowment for someone to go make their short film and then premiere it at places. So, that's cool. More power to the art form. But honestly, so when you texted me, just a little behind the curtain, you texted asking if I had seen Burrow, and we had been talking about the Small Axe anthology right before that, and I was like, is Chris spelling Burrow wrong? Like, does he mean, like, Boroughs of London, and there's some, like, little short Small Axe entry that didn't show up on Amazon Prime?
The secret sixth entry into the series.
Yep. The even smaller axe. Small axe, more like small shovel, right?
Yeah, I was going to go for that too. But I was clearing my throat, which I will hopefully remember to edit out of this episode. But yeah, what do you say, Stephen? We get into our review of Soul.
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to take a listen to the trailer for Soul, and then we're going to come back and give you fine listeners a review.
What is this place?
What's your name, honey?
I'm Joe. I teach middle school band. Got it, go for it! Today started out as the best day of my life.
Back here tonight, first show's at 7.
Yes! Woohoo! You know what that's gonna say? Joe Gardner. I did it. I got the gig.
Must have been sudden for you.
Wow! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Help! I'm not done! Oh my goodness! Huh? Is this heaven?
No, it's the great before. This is where new souls get their personalities, quirks, and interests before they go to Earth.
Meet 22.
I don't want to go to Earth.
Stop fighting this.
I don't want to.
Okay, look, I already know everything about Earth, and I don't want anything to do with it.
You're missing out on the joys of life, like pizza. I can't smell. We can't taste either?
All that stuff is in your body.
No smell, no taste.
Or touch. See?
Okay, I get it. Wow. It's my life.
Is all this living really worth dying for? You're still alive?
Can you help me get back?
No way!
There I am. What are we waiting for?
Wait, not me!
This weird.
What is it?
151,000 souls going to the great beyond every day. And I count every single one of them. The count's off.
Huh.
All right, so that was the trailer for Soul. It is basically the story of a middle school jazz band teacher who has dreams of becoming like a big set jazz band player. And one day he finally gets his huge break, but unfortunately steps into an open manhole and plummets to his death. And he wakes up as he's traveling to the great beyond and decides, hey, I'm not ready to travel to the great beyond, and fights his way back and sort of learns about the realms between the worlds and tries to figure out a way to get back to his body so he can perform this show that he's super excited to perform in. Stephen Miller, what did you think of Soul?
So I had a couple immediate impressions. One, this has become a pattern on this show, but I didn't see any trailer for it at all, I don't think, ever. So, like, even what you just said about, Joe Gardner stepping in a manhole and plummeting to his death, I had no idea that was going to happen, right? Like, when it happened, I was rather shocked, actually. What do I think? First, I'll get out of the way. I think this is a great Pixar movie. Super into it. I think it is a different Pixar movie, which is strange because it is extremely similar plot-wise to Inside Out, the last Pete Docter film. I feel like what Pete Docter has been doing lately is he's kind of playing a game of chicken with the line between text and subtext of like, how far can I just make the movie be about the theme and still keep people engaged? So like with Up, right, he was already going for very brazen emotion in a way that Pixar movies sometimes kind of approach obliquely. With Inside Out, he was like, I'm going to make this be about emotion. And now he's like, I'm just going to tell you what the meaning of life is. And that is a very bold thing to do. But I think it is effective here. An interesting thing I learned recently is that this was co-directed with Kemp, who's the guy who wrote One Night in Miami, like the play and the screenplay that movie was based on. So like he had some help here. But yeah, I think this is not a kid's movie, right? Like, is it fair for me to say? I think this is the first Pixar movie where I definitively think this was meant for adults and like kids will be allowed to watch it. Yeah. But I have no idea what what is in it that is meant to be fodder for kids. It seems like it'd be way too hard to follow for a kid.
That is true. And also, like, I feel like there's going to be lots of terribly existential conversations in the car ride home if this was a theater-going movie, where parents are going to have to, like, help address death with their children.
Exactly, yeah. Like, a character dies in this movie. Like, a lot of the jokes in the movie would go over kids' heads. The characters, especially the design, which we'll get into, of the afterlife, characters act and speak in a way that I think a little kid wouldn't really even be able to track what is going on.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting for Pixar, but I am not a child. You know, I'm a full-grown adult with purpose and sparks and things like that. And I thought this movie was great. It's a great new entry. It didn't hit me in the feels quite the way Inside Out did. I think because that buffer of kids movie allows me to become a little more sentimental and a little more wholly invested than I am when that buffer goes away. So something about like a little girl learning that it's okay to be sad and happy at the same time hit a deeper chord with me than, you know, a grown man learning about why life is worth living. I think Jamie Foxx is great in this movie. Tina Fey, I don't know how I feel. You know, the internet has kind of been ablaze discussing, did they have to cast Tina Fey here? Like, there could have been way more things you could do with that character that just would avoid the awkward reality of having a like white SNL woman play that. We won't get into it.
They couldn't cast Amy Poehler again. So
right, exactly. They came as close to Amy Poehler as possible. Anyway, barring the fact that the casting decision is strange for reasons that we probably won't get into directly right here.
Yeah.
I think like she is the game. Like there's lots of gags with her character related to like learning life lessons in the past and people she's interacted with and stuff that I think, you know, worked on me really well. There are a few things that I thought were very moving and like borderline profound. One is the idea of like being in the zone and the notion of how the spiritual and the physical worlds connect. This is hinted at very early on in the part of the movie that Jamie was on board for. And then where Joe Gardner is playing piano. But then it is given more depth over the course of the film in a way that I think is like really well thought out and, you know, honestly pretty genius. Everything about this character of Moonwind, who we see in multiple realms and we see how those connect. Hilarious, great. Like would be great in like a 30 Rock joke. Like this was just full on comedy funny. I was really into that. I think the design of the before and the afterlife is really interesting. Again, kind of following in the vein of what Inside Out did, where you have things that are not quite solid. They're more like clouds of color and wisps, and in this case, edges play a vital role in a way that I think is really interesting. I thought I was going to go the movie without having a thing that really hit me in the gut. Like I was about 20 minutes from the end and I was like, all right, movie, you've been nice. I really like the message, but you know, you didn't get me the way Inside Out did. And then there's, you know, a montage comes. We all know it's going to come, but it still works when it comes anyway. And it got me. It got me. I don't really know what else to say broadly about it. I think this is a movie that is tackling difficult themes. It is doing them justice. It is, again, not a kids movie really, but it's more like a film for adults that is taking as a challenge being G-rated. And I think it pulls it off, and it has a lot of things to say about, honestly, things that the next movie we're going to discuss tonight tries to talk about as well, and I think does way less successfully. Just about, you know, living life, the value of living, what you should prioritize and what you shouldn't. And as with many movies in the COVID pandemic especially, I think those simple themes ring more true because we've all been kind of forced to grapple with what matters to us and what doesn't, and what is like the zest of life. And I think this movie delivers on that.
Yeah, I also thought this film was pretty great, and like you, Stephen, I wasn't quite hit as much in the heart as I was with Inside Out. Like Inside Out was like a very like just an emotionally brilliant film, and I think that this film is sort of intellectually brilliant. Not at the loss of the heart feeling, because the heartstrings are still there. But I just think in general, this film stimulated me much more in my brain than in my heart. And it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about whether or not this would appeal to kids. Generally, we generally talk about these type of films being acceptable for children, but especially interesting if you're an adult. And I guess, yeah, this film is dealing with a lot more adult themes than the average Pixar film does. And even the things that, like, there are moments that I just like fell over laughing at, which I was laughing because of how dark they were, and I don't think a child understands the ramifications. Like, for instance, there's a scene involving like a interdimensional doorway that is opened and somebody stepping through it, which I died laughing at that moment because of like just the ramifications of what was going on in that scene. And like a child, there's no way that scene is as funny to a kid, right? That the kid won't perceive the ramifications of what is taking place and understand it with the gravity that scene actually does have. So like
we're talking about an accident that occurs, right?
An accident, an attempt to recall somebody which goes awry. And it's like for me, all the most humorous moments feel very intellectual and very adult, and without that sort of understanding, I don't know how they would play. The counterpoint to that, I would kind of say, is this film does in a way sort of have the thing that I love in films like Swiss Army Man, where like 22 is sort of the dead Daniel Radcliffe character, right? Where it's like, it's a thing that is not yet a human being trying to learn what it means to be human. And like that still had all those touches that went with me. And I think that a child, because this is an adult literal mentor talking to a unformed mind, I think that kids, while they won't understand the passage of what they're watching, I think that there is something that like they are gleaming. This is an adult telling me how to be alive. And like I think kids will understand that they are 22, right? Like they might not understand it the way we can understand that, but I feel that like a child will understand that this is an adult telling a child like things about the world, and maybe a child telling an adult a thing about the world. But yeah, so that's there. I don't know exactly if kids will pick up on all that stuff, but it is there. But yeah, for me, what I think I really loved is the world building in this film. Like just this idea of the great beyond, the great before, this group of people who sort of are the bridge between those things. These like, I forget exactly what the line is from the movie where the first Jerry that you meet, like the way she explains what she is.
I am the coming together of all quantized fields of the universe, appearing in a form your feeble human brain can comprehend.
Like I really enjoyed that kind of aspect of what this film is doing. As you said, this sort of like the getting in the zone and like how that exists in our world, and the way they combine getting in the zone of something you're incredibly passionate about with this aspect of getting sunk into the normality or the banality of certain activities of your life, how those are kind of this like two sides of the same coin. I thought that was like an incredibly intelligent like dissection of like humanity and how we are about the things that we do and what we're passionate about. And I think that this film is just playing with such amazing ideas that I had a lot of fun with it. And I also, when I first saw the design of these interdimensional being things, they're basically they're individual creatures made up of a single unbroken line that like bends around and folds on itself. When I first saw it, I wasn't too happy with what it was doing, but the more I saw the way they played with it and the way they animated it and the way they would do different actions that only those creatures in those shapes could do, it just became like it became like a fun thing where I'm watching the animators of this film have fun with the character design that they played with. And it's like something that like I don't think would work if they were just tall green things instead of small blue things. So yeah.
So what's interesting with the character design of some of them, especially the Terrys and Jerrys, is they felt less like Pixar and more like Don Hertzfeldt, right? Like it kind of felt like World of Tomorrow or something. It was more like wacky and quirky and bending the rules of what animation is allowed to do. I felt like they might have been inspired by him somehow, because I don't know, something struck me as very similar there.
Yeah, but it's just a really creative way to play with that design. Like there's one scene where the Terry character is accepting an award that he asked for, and he walks upstairs to a podium to give his like acceptance, but like he is the stairs that he is walking up. And right. Like obviously if you've seen the film, you can visualize what was happening, but it's such a fun, playful, interesting sort of like thing to do with these characters that like imagine a being that's so infinite and outside of our realm of comprehension that the way you would present yourself to us is a single unbroken line that creates a 2D shape that can move in 3D space. It's so complicated, but I don't know. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the the notion of angst and the lost souls in this movie, because I thought that was also really, really wonderfully rendered, and that is the kind of thing that I think that is an example where I think they communicated a very adult concept in a way that kids will understand. Yeah. Like they took an emotion and heightened it, where I think a kid would get what is going on, but the relationship between that and being in the zone is the kind of profound thing that is lobbed more at adults. And without going into too much detail, like this year has definitely been a year of trying to decide what matters and what doesn't, like beyond whatever things you're striving for.
Yeah.
And that hit me in a particularly hard place. We've all heard this story before, right? Of, it isn't about obsessing over attaining some goal. It's about enjoying the little things in life and not letting life, swallow you up. But I just thought this movie did a really, really nice job of making that literal. And I don't want to give too much away. I will say this movie spends the appropriate amount of time on Earth and in the afterlife and before life areas. There are a few Earth scenes with side characters that I think work really, really well and do a nice job of giving the movie more depth and making it feel more real world. Like this is simultaneously the most abstract Pixar movie and also the most grounded in an actual real world, like a very real New York with very real people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just thought it towed that line really beautifully. I do feel like I have to mention this is the first Pixar movie to prominently feature Black characters, and that is really cool. The decision to forefront Tina Fey the way they did in a movie featuring predominantly Black characters will probably go down as a not great decision on their part. I don't think it torpedoes the movie. Yeah. I just think there are so many things they could have done that would just avoid that problem altogether. And I kind of don't know why they went that route, but I still think in the end, this is Jamie Foxx's movie. And I think he nails it.
Yeah. Without going into too much spoilers, I can't get over how fun and like interesting the concepts are of this realm that we exist in when we're not on Earth in this film. Like there are several different rooms or theaters or places that a pre-soul can go to as they're trying to find their spark before going to Earth. One is just like all the things in the world that you could do. So the idea of like before you are born, being able to try out all the things that you will one day become obsessed with is just a really interesting concept. But also there is a much darker scene later on in which Joe gets to see moments of his life in a room. And the way that plays against his idea of what he's accomplished throughout his life was like, again, one of like the most impactful, I think, scenes in this film.
Yeah. Well, and specifically that scene mirrors a later montage, which I think adds even more to it.
Yeah.
Because it kind of has you questioning again. I will say this movie does commit a semi-cardinal sin. I don't actually care that it does it, but where it it very much intentionally leads you to believe one thing, only to then at the end tell you, like, no, you're wrong for thinking that that's how it works.
That was you're talking about specifically the spark.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I mean, I get what you're saying, but also, like, you're kind of the one that, like, told me to think that, you know?
So that does bring me to an interesting question. Do you think this film is trying to be an answer to the secret message of The Incredibles?
That is very interesting. Because The Incredibles is also the easiest comparison. It's the only other Pixar movie, as far as I remember, that is mostly about humanoid people, like people in the real world. I think it is, right? I mean, because that is definitely kind of an antidote to the, like, objectivism or whatever that is hiding in The Incredibles and is hiding in a movie we're about to talk about.
Oh, I wish that it was, Stephen. I wish that it was.
Yep.
But
I don't know if this is like a subtweet of The Incredibles, but it definitely is a counterpoint of what matters.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a better message for children than The Incredibles is. I don't know. I think it's safe to say that we both enjoyed this film a lot. But do you have any last thoughts about it before we get into our verdict?
No, not really. I think this is a lovely movie. It came out at the right time and in the right venue. Like, I think the holidays are a perfect time to be able to stream and just watch this with family. And yeah, I appreciate this new Pixar that is, like, continuing to try to go into more and more adult themes and see, like, how far they can go with just making subtext text. I don't know when they're going to find that line, but they haven't crossed it yet.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's get to our verdicts then. So, Stephen Miller, if you were going to give this a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with a caveat, or a must-avoid, what would you give it?
This is a must-see. It didn't hit me in the emotional place as some of the more child-oriented Pixar movies, but I think it is more complex. It is doing something harder, and it is executing it pretty much flawlessly. So yeah, this is the ideal version of what Pixar is trying to do. It just, implicit caveat, even though it's a must-see, like, I don't think this is a tearjerker in quite the way that other movies that make you feel like you're 9 years old again are. It's just doing something different, and you're not going to be in the same headspace.
Yeah. This is a must-see for me as well. I really, really enjoyed it. But while you were just giving that little explanation right there, it did make me think, is nostalgia and the ability to transport adults into the mindset of being a child and feeling like a child does the thing that makes us love the other Pixar films? Like, is this film, because it is purely adult, even though we can understand, like, there's something, I don't know. I just, while you were saying that, it made me think that, like, oh, like, yeah, this film didn't make me feel as a child, and maybe that's why I didn't love it that way.
I think, not to diminish the amazingness of what Pixar has executed for decades, but I do think we kind of implicitly grade on a curve when we see a thing that feels like it's for children, but then it works for us. Because if there's anything that doesn't feel perfect, we'll be like, oh yeah, that was broad, but that's because it's for kids, right? Or that, that little midsection with the talking dog and stuff, that wasn't the juice, right? That was for other people. And it puts us back in this realm of being a little kid again and being in just wonder at the world. And this movie quite literally is doing that, but it doesn't ask to be graded on a curve. And I think that, that's bold for it to do. But it just means I'm more inclined to approach it as an adult approaching a movie about life rather than as a kid's movie that can make me feel like a kid again.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that is going to do it for our review of Soul. Stephen Miller, if people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at twitter.com/sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or Twitter.com/ChristopherIRL. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so on Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at Twitter.com/spoilerwarning, Facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or Instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from the soundtrack to Soul, so hopefully you're enjoying that. And yep, as we mentioned earlier, we have a review of Wonder Woman 1984 to do for you. So we're going to head off and record that. But everyone else, hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.